Crowhill here. Today we review a winter ale and discuss the Northman. Hey, good evening. Good to see you.
Yes, hard to see you here again. What do you know?
So what are we drinking?
This is a winter ale. And
fantastic.
It is by 21st Amendment. And, I guess they're trying to, they always put the decorations out too soon. I'm already seeing Christmas decorations for Halloween.
I know, it's ridiculous.
So brewers do the same thing.
I know, and I should have waited for later, but it looked good.
Coming in at nearly 8%, this is probably be a nice beer to buy now and wait till, hang on to it till Christmas. But
fantastic.
What are we expecting? Anyway.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
What's on my mind? So, how about this? Alienation, boredom, ennui, disenchantment, being unsatisfied with life.
Well, thank you there, Debbie Downer. That's what's on your mind?
Well, I'm afraid so.
Okay, maybe these beers will cheer us up.
I hope so.
Make it a little more lively, because
that would
not
be so
sounding
much
good
better.
right now.
Yeah, so if, a Christmas beer might be just the thing to raise my spirits.
A couple of months early, that's fine.
Yeah.
But boy, does it smell like all kinds of holiday.
It smells like all kinds of holiday, and it's Fireside Chat, and 7.9%. And I love the Christmas beer that it's. I think back to ages ago when the Crowhill clan were little children, and we would get everything ready. We'd wrap all the presents. Everything was under the tree.
Assemble the bicycle.
Assemble the bicycle. Everything was ready, and then you'd sit down and you'd say, now I'm going to have my Christmas beer.
And it better be at least 8%.
Yeah, and you drink your Christmas beer, and you relax in front of the Christmas tree with the lights on. Yeah. You drink that, and then you go to sleep, and
the kids wake you up 3 hours later.
Exactly. Yes. So that's what I'm hoping I'm getting here.
I am kind of getting all of that with some holiday spices.
Oh my gosh.
Some cocoa nibs.
Oh yeah. This is good. Yeah, this is. I'm gonna have to get some more of this and set it aside for Christmas Eve, because that is.
That's what you're looking
with
for?
Spices. It actually says it has cocoa nibs in it. Good palate
I'm
there.
getting all kinds of chocolate notes.
Fantastic. Yeah. So here's the plan, everybody. I don't care if you celebrate Christmas or not. Get this beer.
I do.
And then, okay.
Good.
and then some evening this December, when it's late at night and you're, relaxing.
You need a fireside chat?
Have this beer. And, all right. Okay. So.
All right. Let's try to pick it up here a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So what we did was we looked at this article from Rod Dreher.
What can you tell me about Rod?
Okay.
I know he's on my Twitter feed.
He used to be a Roman Catholic, and then he was covering the abuse scandal in the Catholic Church, and it so totally offended him and changed his life that he became Eastern Orthodox.
What do you know?
And now he's a writer. You can see him on Substack and so forth. He's an interesting guy, has some very deep reflections on things. And this one article that I saw by him was about, roughly speaking, it was about the allure of paganism.
Right.
And the idea being that paganism presents an enchanted view of the world.
Right.
And modernism presents a disenchanted view of the world. And the idea was,
is it that a resurgent interest in paganism that's the appeal?
It's like something is missing in modern man, and that thing that's missing can be filled by paganism. And he points us to this movie called The Northman.
Yeah.
And so what I like to do is kind of like discuss The Northman. This is an interesting movie, and then kind of get back to this topic of enchantment, disenchantment, all that kind of stuff.
So it's Viking. It's set in Viking land.
Yeah.
And Hamlet opens up with Hamlet's father is dead, and his mother has married his uncle, his father's brother.
Apparently, Hamlet was partially inspired by the same story that inspired the Northman.
Right. And when actually, and that story, the name's something very similar. It's Amleth or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So but we'll draw a distinction here between Hamlet and the Northman when we get to it. So Hamlet spends the time trying to find out, did they really kill his father? And trying to muster up the courage, which he's having a hard time doing, to avenge his father's death. And what role did mom have in it? And what role did the uncle have in it? So with that, that comes to mind immediately in the opening scenes of Northman. And we'll see how well Northman follows the Shakespeare.
Yeah. So it starts off with the dad taking
Ethan
the boy.
Hawke, which I would never have cast him for. He was great.
I know, he was very good. Taking the boy, the young Amleth. Omelet? That's what I eat for breakfast. So taking like the boy into this ritual where they. It's basically the coming of age ritual.
Yes.
Which is something that's sorely lacking in our culture, by the way. But they take him through this ritual where he becomes a wolf. He learns to be like a man and a wolf at the same time.
Right, where you sort of embrace your spirit animal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they come out of that. Immediately they come out of that experience.
And also, as part of the ritual is your declaration of avenging the death of...
Yes. It's your responsibility. Your loyalty is to your family and to your clan.
Yeah.
And if somebody messes with them, you're going to do something about it. Yeah. So he comes out. Immediately upon coming out, his father gets struck by several arrows. And then the bad guys come up, stab him with spears. And the person responsible for all this is Amleth's uncle.
Yeah.
Who
king's brother
chops off the king's head, and the boy escapes.
Which you never want that to happen. You always need. I know it's mean to kill children, but you got to kill the boy.
That's right. He escapes and rowing away.
What is he chant?
He's saying, "I will kill you, bad guy." Freyr. I will avenge you, father. I will save you, mother. And he just says it to himself over and over.
Yes.
I will kill you, Freyr. I will avenge you, father. I will save you, mother.
And he ends up in some other land, who we don't know exactly.
Well, I think he's in Russia at that point.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he's in Russia, and he gets adopted by some other Viking tribe and becomes a warrior in this other Viking tribe. And they go out and they do their...
They do what
Vikings do. That's right. And he becomes
brutal.
He becomes a pretty serious warrior.
Right.
Yeah, and then at some point he meets a witch or somebody who says you have to get called back to your original purpose. And this is sort of like the hero journey where the hero has the calling, falls away from the calling, and then gets called back to it.
Yeah.
So he's called back to his original purpose, which is to avenge his father. And then he gets some information, and he goes off on this quest to avenge his father and save his mother.
Yeah, and so he deliberately becomes a slave. Isn't that how it works?
That's right.
And only to find out that he doesn't go back to his father's kingdom to find his uncle as king. He's now often... He's in some small town in Iceland.
Yeah, exactly.
So apparently his kingship didn't go well, but his mother is still there.
Yes.
And he comes in and he's with the lovely Anna Taylor-Joy.
Yes.
Who is both beautiful and weird looking at the same time.
She's amazing. I saw her in The Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
And she can look incredibly beautiful and incredibly weird. Depending on the angle.
Listen to the critical drinker. He's like, but although I'm not certain that she isn't an alien.
Right. She's odd.
I know, but strikingly odd.
Strikingly odd, strikingly beautiful, and strikingly odd.
But
at the
also,
same time.
but perfect for someone in some far off land that we haven't been to before.
And Critical Drinker was absolutely right in saying that who's the mom?
Nicole
Kidman. Nicole Kidman was like, do you belong in this movie?
Yeah.
Because all the other characters fit.
Yeah, and I would have said that Ethan Hawke didn't fit, except for he killed it.
He did a great job.
And although it does have that timeless look. He said she's had too much facial work.
Yeah.
And that her face doesn't move with the proper expressions anymore.
Yeah, she didn't quite fit in the movie, but she did a good job.
But anyway, so here he is, fulfilling his destiny.
Yeah.
He's a man of fate. He's taken the vow.
Yes.
And this is where Hamlet falls apart.
Yeah.
Because... So go ahead. He finds out that
he finds out that his mother was complicit in this whole thing,
but not just complicit. His dad was kind of a jerk.
Yeah,
and she made the right decision because he was a good guy. She was a slave. She was like sold to him,
right?
And he thought so. He's
imagining as a boy this wonderful
spent 20 years where he's going to save mother from the evil uncle.
Yeah,
and then I was watching, going, well. You just killed the whole motivation of this movie.
Yeah.
Now, I almost blamed the director and the writer, and I realized this is the point.
Yeah. Yes. The point is the conflict.
Yes.
But still, it's pulled off in an amazing way.
Yes.
It's really. I mean, it's gory and it's bloody,
but it's beautifully filmed.
It is a good movie.
It's beautifully filmed, and but they, he does decide to go ahead and fight to the death.
Yes.
And somehow they end up fighting in basically hell.
It reminded me of Obi-Wan Kenobi fighting against the kid. What's the kid's name? Losing it. When they're fighting in one of the movies, they're fighting among all this lava. It's basically the same scene here where...
Well, so this one of the interesting things of the movie is... This enchanted feeling, is the point of what's going on, that you're not quite sure what their reality is, because their reality is so infused with the magical.
That was actually the director did a fantastic job of going back and forth between what's actually happening and dreams.
Right.
And you're not always sure whether what's happening is really happening or whether it's happening in the imagination and the dream of the main character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which was actually very interesting.
So they end up fighting to the death, both of them.
Right.
And and that's it.
It's a really good movie. It's if you can stand the gore. It's a really good movie, and you should watch it. And think about Hamlet when you watch it.
Yes,
because there are some interesting contrasts between the two.
But at that point, I'm like, oh my! Because I had already told my son the Hamlet story.
Yeah,
I said that's what I know. That has something to do with this movie.
Yeah,
and then at that point, I'm like, all the hair came out of my Hamlet analogy.
Yeah,
because it took on a life of its own.
Yes,
so. Interesting that Rod Dreher is watching it, and he is seeing a world where people live with the enchantment of their beliefs.
Yes. So he's picturing a reality where the gods aren't some distant concept, where ritual is incredibly important, where the idea of fate and visions and dreams, and like in this movie, when you see a raven, that's a symbol of Odin, right? So there are all these symbolic representations going on in this movie, and Dreher is reflecting on how enchanted this is, and how you feel as if everything is imbued with meaning. When you see a raven, it's not just a bird. No, it's a raven representative of Odin.
But
when
then
you see all the things that you see are not just like details, not just random details. They all have meaning and purpose, and they fit in with a plot and a fate and a destiny.
But he translates that to Christian enchantment.
Yes, and what he's
And that we don't really have.
He's saying that we don't have that anymore. That we don't have this concept of. So I came up with a chart of modernity, disenchantment versus older cultures and enchantment. I'm not going to read the whole list because it's kind of long. But modernity you might characterize as sterile, rational, technological, scientific, practical, empirical, analytical, secular. The older cultures you might characterize as intuitive, ritualistic, mystical, symbolic, right, mythological, sacred. So it's
depending on what age you're in.
Yeah.
The good check marks and the bad check marks would change. I would say that the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason, they would be like, yeah, this is exactly what we're doing here.
Yes.
While being very religious men.
Yes.
They would have gone down, well, not sterile, that's not nice.
But rational, yes.
But rational, technological, scientific, empirical.
Predictable, logical, yeah, objective, measurable.
But in their minds, that did not take away from God and religion and the mystical experience. That they're like, God gave us the reason to understand the universe.
Yes.
But somehow along the way...
Somehow it transmogrified into this sense of meaninglessness and a lack of connection.
Right, that all those things that we mentioned actually stripped God out of the equation, which is when probably around the time of Nietzsche came along and said, thanks... science and reason and enlightenment, you just killed God,
which is not a good thing.
It's not, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, right.
Even though he probably didn't believe in God anyway, but he did recognize that this is not going to work out well.
And the really odd thing about all this is that the problem that modern man faces, this sense of alienation and boredom and disenchantment and this sense of meaninglessness, actually the things that modernity provide are order and structure and
stability, and Mongol hordes are not going to come through and kill you. We're not going to be wiped out by another plague. You're right. I mean, the heat's going to come on. The electricity's on. We're going to have food and water.
Yeah.
There's not going to be famine. I mean, it makes life so much more comfortable. And then what do we do with that comfort and that lack of fear of the unknown?
Yeah.
We get your boredom, ennui, and disenchantment.
It comes right back to a day in the life of Denisovich, where if you could put man in a situation where all he had to do was rest in hot tubs and eat bonbons and see to the procreation of the species, he would destroy it all just so something new would happen. Right? And it kind of gets right back to that when life is too orderly and structured and predictable and easy, we don't like it. It's not. It doesn't.
You get fentanyl, and you get
yes, exactly. So I want to take just a moment and talk about this, because what Dreher is talking about here is this concept of enchantment,
right?
And enchantment seems to refer to a way of seeing the world as alive with meaning, mystery, and spiritual significance. And then disenchantment refers to the process by which the modern world has become disillusioned with the mystical, supernatural, and symbolic. Instead, reality is viewed through a lens of rationality, scientific explanation, and control. And this reminds me a little bit, did you ever listen to the left brain, right brain conversation with Ian McGilchrist?
No.
Yeah, so Ian McGilchrist wrote this book called The Master and His Emissary, and he's doing a lot of left brain, right brain research. And to some extent, this whole enchantment, disenchantment thing reminds me of that. It reminds me of the functions of the two hemispheres of our brain and how one of them is looking at the big picture, the meaning, the kind of a mythological perspective, and the other is just very practical, grabbing things and manipulating them and doing them. And Ian McGilchrist would argue that our age is more defined by the left brain, which is very practical and systematic and so forth.
So what would be, what is lacking if you don't, is your only option to believe in God? Or is something like the wonder of nature and the appreciation of beauty for its own sake? I mean, can those kinds of things fill that gap a little bit?
Yeah. So this is a great question, and I think that's one of the things that the so-called four horsemen of the apocalypse, that Ditchens and Dawkins and Dennett and Harris were wrestling with. Which I think when they first started off, they were just so focused on, was Jonah swallowed by the whale? Instead, they were so
right. Therefore, religion sucks.
Exactly,
because that's fake.
Yes. So they were so focused on like stupid details that they missed the bigger point, which is, wait a minute, isn't there something going on here? And they started to come around to the question of wonder and awe. And
wonder and awe.
Yes, and they started to say, wait a minute, yes, I do have a sense of awe in front of nature. So I think that some of the atheists, the big name atheists, were trying to say, yes, it is possible to have a sense of wonder and awe and mystery and enchantment from a non-religious point of view.
Yes, Yes, you should be able to lie on the beach and stare at the stars and just be blown away.
Yeah.
And have that fulfill some aspect, of that to fill some of that emptiness.
Yeah, but I think what it all would boil down to, I think what Dreher would say, what it all boils down to is, yes, you can have a sense of wonder, you can have a sense of awe, you can have a sense of, wow, this is amazing, but what you don't have is a sense of purpose, teleology, a sense of meaning, right? And that's the thing that's missing. And that's where the enchantment versus the disenchantment comes in.
Right.
Is that there's no, from an atheistic worldview perspective, there is no sense of meaning and purpose.
Right. Do you recall going to St. Matthew's recently?
I do. Yes.
So talking about this enchantment and being surrounded by wonder. Mm-hmm. We went to St. Matthew's in D.C. and the architecture of the building, being in the building, there was just something very special, a very special feeling about being in there, even as a non-Catholic and non-particularly religious person. Then you recognize, that's the point. Mm-hmm. And we've talked before about, isn't the role of the church, to help people broadly? And if you took all of that money and then just built a church in a Walmart and then took the rest of the money and gave it to the poor or whatever, wouldn't that really be serving God's, Jesus's plan better than the expense on this church? I would say that, the Drehers and the enchantments of the world would say, that's what this room does. Yeah. It lets you know, it makes you feel like God is all around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a perennial problem of, in the Gospels, when the woman brought the expensive perfume to anoint Jesus' feet,
right,
and the disciples complained, couldn't this have been sold and the money given to the poor?
I didn't know that was a story.
Yeah, so it's a perennial problem,
right.
And the point is that the problems of the poor, and of the rich for that matter, are not just having enough food to eat today. They have other kinds of problems, like a sense of wonder and awe, and a sense of mystery, and a sense of being surrounded by meaning and purpose. So this trying to reduce everything down to,
right,
do you have two pairs of shoes? That's like a reductionist view of reality.
It's almost a Marxist view.
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
Sense.
Yeah.
That everything comes down to material satisfaction.
Exactly. If you're going to reduce human needs down to that, you've kind of missed the point. Right. So that actually kind of ties in closely with when I was thinking about all this and this problem of disenchantment and the things that we see going on in the church today. I was thinking, well, what could the church do to reach people who have this feeling of disenchantment and disillusionment and ennui and boredom and all the other things we're talking about?
Right.
And like, where does, like, for example, the Catholic Church, where does it provide something? And here's some options. The sacraments as sort of a mystical encounter, ritual and liturgy, veneration of saints and angels, Marian devotion, the idea of tradition, and so you do have. This is where
the Catholic Church and Eastern Orthodox is addressing this problem that Protestant religions are not.
Yes, yes, very, very true. And then, now there are some things that you could criticize on the Catholic side in the disenchantment point of view, which would be kind of being overly intellectual, like St. Thomas Aquinas and those kind of guys. Some people would say that pushes things more towards the disenchantment side of things. But I think that's a little overblown. Then, if you were to say, okay, what am I going to try to do? Let's say you were going to try to advise the Pope on what are you going to do to reach young men who feel this feeling of disenchantment. How about this? Focus on the struggle, not focus on the struggle of faith. That it's a battle. It's not just some weird ooey gooey thing. Focus on the masculine elements of Catholic mysticism, where the image of Christ as a warrior king who conquers death.
But Dreher is saying some of this too, right? He's like, this is where this.
Yes.
Yeah. That this paganistic appeal. The church can appeal to that also.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
Dreher is saying paganism, as illustrated in this movie, The Northman, has an appeal in a lot.
I would never have gone there, but I get it. That he has.
Yeah, it has all these appeals, but Christianity has those same appeals. It's just that we're not getting it. What we're getting is, I saw what you had over there on the side.
Finish yours and let's do this.
All right. So, ritual and tradition, sacred art, stories of the saints and legends, the idea of sacred spaces. All these things bring about a sense of enchantment and being like when we were in St. Matthew's, being surrounded by these images of saints and angels and all that other kind of stuff. It's a very enchanted sort of a feeling. So what do we get from the church?
So the church has decided, and this is not a terrible idea, that the church has a desire to live even within the pop culture so beloved by our youth. Okay, I mean, meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how's that going?
Well, generally speaking, I think trying to meet the youth where they are is like, okay, are you just like admitting that you're stupid? Is that?
So what we're gonna do is wrap our sermons.
Yeah.
How's that?
Into the kinds of banal nonsense that the youth.
But that's value. Okay. We've got a new mascot for the holy year of 2025. It's Luce, which I think is Italian for light.
Yeah.
And
like Lucifer, the.
Might as well be, featuring a blue-haired prepubescent waif in a raincoat. Might not be the most edifying image at this moment for the church. What do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, look at this thing. This is an anime, blue-haired
It looks like something that a young Japanese girl would buy at a curio shop.
Yes. And so we've decided. So somebody's remark is, it's not the Archbishop's fault, but he looks like a dirty old man here. It's awful in 1,000 ways.
Yes.
And so, I can't pronounce.
Oh gosh,
pronounce
Eva,
her name.
she's fantastic.
I just call her Eva because the name is too much. But what's her comment?
So she's this woman is fantastic. If you're not following her on Facebook,
in the EU,
Eva Volander Gardagerdegebrück. Although clearly well-intended, it's a pity the church fails to understand that young people who are turning to the Catholic faith, like myself, are actually turning away from pop culture and are looking for objective truth. Hence why they're often even attending Latin Mass. And this is the thing that people just don't get. If you're not giving them something that they can't get on Oprah, why would they come? Why don't they just watch Oprah?
Yeah.
So the churches that are growing, well, okay, that's overstating the case. Unfortunately, sometimes the banal mega church nonsense stuff is also growing. Okay, but there's also a lot of growth in churches that are going back to their roots. They're emphasizing tradition. The Lutheran churches that are playing Bach masses, the churches that have incense and altar servers and have a traditional architecture and stick to the traditional liturgy.
Where did we go down here in Baltimore? Or was that?
Right, we went to that. It was an ordinariate church, which means an Anglican church that had come into the Roman Catholic Church, so they used the traditional Anglican version of the Mass, and it was fantastic. It was beautiful.
Well attended.
Yes. So a lot of the more traditional churches are seeing growth precisely because they're not appealing to pop culture.
I know the Babylon Bee was like, church that tells people exactly what they want to hear is confused why it's losing members or something like that.
It's like I'm not getting any meaning here. If the problem
if you go there and you're in the church, the preacher's telling you anything that you're doing,
it's okay.
It's perfectly fine. God loves you anyway. You're like, all right.
Okay, fine.
Thanks.
Why am I here?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'll just go. I'd really rather be out at the bar. I mean,
I thought you were going to come in here and ask me to change my life, but
if not, okay, fine.
All right. Well, I guess I'm good with God. Here we go.
Yeah. Jesus is just all right with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you're not calling people to something higher, then they're like, okay, so what? Never mind.
Yeah. I mean, at least in Rod Dreher's mind, if you were trying to appeal to the popular culture, could you at least have Jesus be a WWE wrestler?
Sure, exactly.
Right? I mean, at least he's going to war and he's out there to fight.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
This thing?
I know.
Are you kidding me? This is... Do you think he's okay with that? He might be. I don't know.
I don't know. It is a kind of a pervy picture, to tell you the truth.
It is. Yeah. And we don't need that in the Catholic Church right now.
No, we've had enough of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
So we need the idea of the warrior. We need the idea of having a purpose. We need the idea of a struggle. We need the idea of being part of a broader tradition.
You mentioned earlier in terms of the Northman movie, what do you call it? A rite of passage, something where you were a boy and now you're a man, and now we have different expectations of you now.
Yes,
we have no expectations. That's why you've got 35-year-old guys getting together for pizza and video games.
Yes.
Because nobody expects anything more from them.
That's exactly right. It's very depressing, and I would love to see the church challenging people a little bit more. A little while ago, a couple years ago, I think, Jordan Peterson had this video where he was addressing the Christian church. And he was saying, well, here's what you need to do. You need to put a big sign in front of your church that says, young men are welcome here. And then start challenging them and giving them something to aspire to, rather than just this milquetoast bland BS that you typically get in church.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so somehow well, thanks to Rod Dreher, we would never have thought that this movie would take you to the need for traditional Christianity, because there's not a whiff of it in this movie, which is brutally pagan.
Yes,
but that very interesting. I thought it made for interesting discussion and
very interesting. And by the way, watch the movie and let us know what you think. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.